Today I'm going to do a review on some photographs that someone sent in to us. So let's get started. Thank you so much for being here. If it's your first time here and you'd like to win more ribbons at your next horse show, improve your riding and training, or generally like other horsey related stuff, then remember to subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. Shout out to Sammy. Hi Sammy. Thank you so much for sending in those pictures and videos. Really appreciate it. If you want to see what Sammy's up to, go to Instagram and follow Sammy on Sammy's Horse Adventures on Instagram. She's got lots of fun things going on there, lots of videos, and all the things that she's doing with her horse. Thank you so much, Sammy, for sharing that with us. Hope you don't mind me giving you a shout out. While you're on Instagram, don't forget to follow me as well, Kelland-May. Love to hear from you. Some of the pictures off the videos were kind of dark, so I wasn't able to do them, but here's some of the pictures that she sent going over fences, and she also sent a video of a flat class so that we can look at her over there. So here's some pictures of her going over fences. So great that you're going in the horse show and that there are training shows in your area that you can take part in. Really love that people are getting out there and practicing going into horse shows. Before we go any further, there's something here that bothers me. Is a safety issue when you're riding and schooling on your own in a lesson, and particularly at a horse show, which this was, and that is the jump cups are metal jump cups and they're left on the jump standards, and to me this is a very dangerous thing. This is something that should be fixed immediately, and this is something that your coach, your trainer, and you can do when you're riding on your own, is to remove the metal jump cups from the jump standards when you're riding, and in particular when you're jumping, because it's dangerous. If you stumble, if your horse stumbles and you come off, you're going to hit that empty jump cup and it will be a disaster. So take those jump cups off and make sure that this is done at the horse show. Don't be afraid to speak up and say, hey, there's jump cups left on the jump standards, let's take them off. It's a safety issue. Lots of stuff on the ground, jump stuff, jump fillers, gates. It looks like there's a gate on the ground. There's lots of extra poles and equipment laying on the ground. Jump stuff. There's a lot of stuff, and this is also a dangerous situation for people who are riding in that horse show, because if the horse refuses, runs out, or stops, the horse is going to step on those, and if the rider isn't as secure in the saddle, they're going to fall on those. So those should be moved into a safe area so that people don't hurt themselves on it. I have some very general comments for you about your riding. Excellent. Keep up your good work. Keep going to your lessons. Keep getting your horse going forward, and keep pushing your heels down. Keep all those things that your trainer and your coach, your instructor are telling you to do. Just keep going and keep riding. But I've got some specific exercises you can do to help improve your riding and get moving along faster with your riding. The first thing I noticed when I looked at the pictures was, one, you got your eyes up, and that's really good. Having your eyes up, watching where you're going, watching where the horse is going, is a really important thing, and one of the first things that a judge sees when they're watching you at a horse show. This does look like a horse show situation. You've got a nice jacket on, you're riding with gloves, excellent, and your breeches and boots, and your horse is in good shape. So one of the first things the judge looks at is, yeah, she's got her eyes up, she's looking where she's going, looks like she's got a plan. Good job. Another thing I noticed is that you have gloves on. Excellent, way to go with your gloves, but you know what? I zoomed in on those gloves and I could see that your fingers were open. So keep your fingers closed around the reins so you have a constant, soft, elastic contact with the horse's mouth. If you have your reins open and it looks like you have your fingers, like you're, keep your fingers closed as if you were holding little birds in your hands. That's what somebody told me once. Think that you're holding little birds in your hands, and you don't want to crush the birds, but you don't want the birds to escape. So you have your hands closed around the reins softly to keep the reins from slipping through your hands, and have a soft, elastic contact towards the horse's mouth. That's the key. So it does look like your hands are open and you're leaning on your fingers on the horse's neck. And what this does is it makes you round your shoulders forward, which it looks like you're doing as well. and pinch with your knee so your leg is slipping back a little bit as well. So let's look at your legs. So in this picture here, you can see that your leg has slipped back a bit and your leg is kind of rotated out. So you're pinching with your knee and your calf is rotating onto the horse and your toe is rotating outward. So rather than folding at your hips and bending at your knee and bending at your ankles to absorb the shock and stay with the horse, you're rotating out and leaning down on the horse's neck. Keep your chest up, weight down, coming down into your heels. So your heels, think of pushing them down and forward rather than pinching with your knee and rotating around your knee. Does that make sense? So here's a little bit more explanation about that. You're leaning onto your hands. That's the red arrow pointing downward. And that makes you round your shoulders. You're leaning down in your hands, which brings the weight off of your heels and onto your knees and your hands. So there's no depth in your heel. There's no weight down in your heel. This puts your weight onto the top of the horse and onto your hands rather than keeping the weight down into your heels. What we'd like to see is your back flat and the weight coming down into your heels. Well, how are you going to do that? Best exercise for that is riding in your 2-point position over trot rails, 2-point position over small jumps, 2-point position at the trot, 2-point position, 2-point position, 2-point position, 2-point position. Take a look at this video here. There's lots of exercises that you can do to improve your leg position. Most of them involve 2-point position and even riding with one hand behind your back, or let one hand hang down at your side so that you can develop that weight down into your heel. That is the key to your riding success, is keeping the weight down into your heels. Not just putting your heels down, but keeping the weight down into your heels. There should be a straight line, shoulder, knee, toe when you're in your 2-point position. And in this position here, you can see there is, if I drew a straight line, shoulder, knee, toe on your position that you're riding in, it's quite a bit at an angle rather than perpendicular to the ground. You'd like to have your stirrup leather parallel to the girth or perpendicular to the ground, and your body in balance, so that if we took that horse out from underneath you, you would be in balance. So keep your shoulders over top of your hips and lower your seat closer to the saddle, closer to the seat of the saddle, less over the pommel of the saddle. You can see that you're standing up in the stirrups and the angle at your knee is open up and your seat is over the pommel of the saddle. Keep the seat closer to the seat of the saddle. So this green line kind of represents where your shoulders should be, a straight line, shoulder, knee, toe. And you can see you can do that if you brought your seat closer to the saddle, close your hip angle, and closed your knee angle as well. So like you're crouching in the saddle rather than standing up and pushing yourself forward in the saddle. So let's just comment a little bit about your horse. What a great horse. He looks so kind and so even pace, lovely even pace throughout the entire course, throughout the entire video that you sent me. Really loved that video. Thank you so much for sending it to me. First thing I noticed is that although he's really steady in his canter, he's got to be moving a little bit more forward so that he can get to his jumps at a little bit better distance. And you broke a couple times to the trot, which isn't really good when you're cantering a hunter course. So each time you break to the trot, that'll be some marks deducted. Even at a schooling show level horse show, if you break to the trot, that's going to count against you. So keep your legs on and keep him moving forward. He's got a lovely steady canter, but he's got to be going more forward. Now, when you go into a hunter ring, the hunter is judged on the horse and the horse's performance and the horse's style of jumping and the horse's correctness over top of the jump. When you're jumping smaller jumps, it's hard to get the horse to be motivated to pick his feet up. So it's really difficult to comment on his jumping style because he's just really cantering over this jump rather than jumping and using himself. But I'm going to do it anyway. So when you're going in a hunter class, the horse is being judged on its jumping performance. And when you look at this photograph, you can see that the green line shows you where we'd love to see these horses. Contrast this horse's jumping style with this gray horse's jumping style, and you can see that the gray horse has its knees up and square and level. Your horse, however, Sammy, is a little bit lazy over these jumps, and I'm thinking just because they're so small that he's not motivated to get his knees up. So his knees are dropped down below the horizontal line, and he's open below his knees as well. But the judge does look for the style and performance of the horse and the way the horse is using itself over the jumps. The other thing I noticed about his jumping style is that his hind legs are not together, and that's another thing that the judge looks for when the horse goes over the jumps. You can see that his hind legs are in the sequence of legs of the canter, so he's not stepping together with his hind legs to push off over top of the jump. And once again, it's probably because the height of the jumps are pretty low. He doesn't have to. Once you start going over higher jumps, his performance will improve. What do we want Sammy to do for improver in performance? Number one, keep your hands closed around the reins so that you can have an elastic connection with the horse. Keep your seat over the middle of the saddle of the jump, not pushing and standing up in your stirrups over the pommel of the saddle. To do that, one of the best exercises I know is to ride in your 2-point without stirrups, 2-point at the walk, 2-point at the trot, 2-point over canter, 2-point over trotting poles. Remember to take the jump cups off your jump standards if you're doing 2-point over trot poles. And keep working, keep your eyes up. Really love that. Thank you so much, Sammy, for taking the time to taking these lovely videos. And remember, shout out to Sammy at Sammy's Horse Adventures. Now go use this stuff. Go hug your horse. Go use this stuff. Thanks now. Bye.